Our guest tonight is Senator Steve Cwodzinski, or SWAT as we would like to know each other. Represents Senate District 48. That's the cities of Eden Prairie and Minnetonka. Steve was a former teacher in the Eden Prairie school system for, I believe, 33 years. He's seeking re-election. He was elected in 2016. November 3, 2020 is approaching at warp speed. I want to talk to you, Steve, about what we should be doing to prepare for our winning election. But I want to tell our audience first. This is Amy Klobuchar, our United States Senator. She says Minnesotans deserve legislatures who put politics aside and work to build a better future for everyone. As a state senator, Steve Cwodzinski has been a leader in fighting for our small businesses, investing in our students, and addressing critical health care shortages. I think that's a real compliment, Steve. How are we going to make sure that we deliver the goods?
You know, I think the number one thing we can do is get youth out to vote. 18 to 23-year-olds. They've been sitting on the sidelines for many years. Voter turnout for our youth is generally hovers around 25, 30%. It went up to 40% in 2018.
Is that statewide or national? Or?
Statewide.
Okay.
We had the highest youth voter turnout in the country. Really? A lot of kudos to Steve Simon for working on that. And but nonetheless, I think the kids, they're young adults. They've been waiting for this opportunity. Global warming and gun violence and mental health issues and educational funding, all those issues that they're so concerned about. And I think they're ready to participate. And once we get them addicted, so to all the guests, that viewers that are have kids that are 18, 19, 20, or neighbors or friends, get them to the polls, because once, as you guys know, once you get addicted to this thing called democracy, you're addicted to the rest of your life. So let's get them addicted at 18 and 19 and 20. Get them to the polls.
I'll better that a little bit. Get them addicted to voting Democrat, because I understand that the first time you vote is sets a stage for how you will vote going into the future. So I think if a young person weighs the issues and decides that he or she appreciates the democratic values, we may have that voter for life.
Yeah.
So how are you campaigning these days? I mean, I know you've been doing coffee shops.
Yeah.
I know you've been doing virtual town halls. If I'm missing something?
I went lit dropping, where I just go door to door, and I go down the street and I hit up every door and I just throw some lit in the door frame. And if somebody's in the driveway or getting their mail, I'll sit and chat with them. I've been doing phone calling undecided voters, giving them a call just to see how, what are you thinking? And so, and people want to talk. They got things on their mind. And when I introduce myself and I say who I am, we have a nice conversation. So, and then a couple fundraisers via Zoom. I had one live one, social distancing in a backyard. It's a different campaign season.
I bet in your first campaign it was much more fun, because you're a person-to-person guy. I suspect knocking on those people's doors was a lot of fun for you.
I loved every minute of it, even like the bad ones, because they'd give you something to talk about around the dinner table that night. But yeah, it's just different, and I miss shaking people's hands. I miss hugging. I just miss that personal touch, the personal contact. That this. Sure. On a Zoom isn't the same.
Mm-hmm. Now, I've already given you Amy Klobuchar's compliment.
Yeah, that was a nice quote.
But I also want to say kudos for seeing that the Southwest Light Rail through to complete funding. That's quite an accomplishment.
Yeah, thank you. My opponent in 2016 was a known opponent to it.
Absolutely.
And he had the chops in the Minnesota Senate to not get it through. And I think the people of Senate District 48 and St. Louis Park and Minnetonka and Edina and Hopkins, I think that, and all the way into Minneapolis, they're going to see some big benefits. They already have 3 250-unit buildings within 3 blocks of the terminus in Eden Prairie and under construction. That's 750 residents that are going to take it to downtown or baseball games or to work. It's good.
I've heard upwards of hundreds of millions of dollars have been invested by the private sector along the light rail line. Is that a fair guess?
I think, yeah. There's a distillery opened up in Eden Prairie right at one of the stops, and he picked that spot specifically because that was going to be a stop on the light rail line. How exciting, though, for people like in Mankato to come up for a ball game or whatever, meet people at the IDS building when COVID ends, and they don't have to drive into traffic. They stop in Eden Prairie, they get on light rail safely within 25 minutes, or meeting their business partner or watching a Twins game. It's going to be great.
So I know that you've been a fierce advocate for public schools and teachers.
Yeah.
What is going to come out of the legislature once the Democrats take control of the Senate?
Well, I think teachers will know that they have a bunch of friends in the legislature. The Republicans introduced 2 years ago a 0.5 increase per year, and that's not even inflation. I mean, how can, and what a horrible thing to tell teachers and parents and kids that, you know, we don't value you guys, so we're not even going to give you a keep up with inflation kind of funding. And so I think the teachers are going to be pleased when we take back the Senate, because they'll get good funding and we'll do all the things. Special ed teachers are going nuts right now with the amount of paperwork they have. I'm just shocked that I'm on the education committee, and I'm not making this up. You can Google it. I think out of every 50 people that come testify, 3 are classroom teachers. This is at the education committee. And so we've got to hear from our teachers, what's on their mind. And one of the bills I want to get through is requiring a government civics class is not required in Minnesota.
You've already introduced that, haven't you?
I have. For 4 years, 3 years I've introduced it. And it actually made it to Dayton's desk in the omnibus bill.
And it just got
it got vetoed along with the other 950 pages.
That must have been very disappointing.
It was. And finally, there was a compromise between the Republicans and me to, it's encouraged is the current language. But if I can get 3 more seats in the Senate, we'll get it required.
Well, you're going to get those 3 seats, aren't you?
Yes, we are. We're going to get 6.
All right.
We're going to get 6. I'm taking bets here. 6 seats we'll pick up.
So let's talk about some issues. The Republicans and the Democrats are at a standoff in the state Senate. As I understand it, it's because the Republicans are in opposition to the pandemic-related emergency powers that have been voted in by the Republicans and Democrats. Now they want to cut those out and have it more or less business as usual. And that's had some big ramifications, both health-wise, of course, and hasn't it also affected the ability of the legislature to pass any kind of bonding bill whatsoever?
We haven't passed a bonding bill, I think, in 3 years. And it's the longest time since the 70s or something like that. That bonding bill didn't get passed. I think that a lot of the Republicans, one of them said we shouldn't, during one of the special sessions when they were trying to stop Governor Walz from what he was trying to do to save lives. They said we shouldn't be guided by science. And yeah, really, we shouldn't be guided by science. I hope their 7th and 10th and 12th grade science teachers heard that senator say that. I think the bonding bill didn't get passed, and decent police reform didn't get, it all got hung up because of this COVID mess. And
well, let's talk a little bit about the COVID situation. Apparently, there's been more hospital admissions as of this week than there were since early June for COVID, which shows you not that it's going to go away as our president would like to think, but it's increasing. What can we do to make sure that it doesn't get any worse?
Just listen to science. Wear a mask in public. Keep social distancing. I'm doing everything we've been saying to do. If you talk to teachers, they're working harder than they've ever worked. And believe me, 33 years I taught. I know how hard teachers work, and they're telling me they've never worked harder, and there's none of the rewards of teaching right now. And because they're not in, Billy doesn't leave class and go, wow, thanks, Mrs. Smith. I didn't know anything about science, that topic, and I don't know the answers to how to fix the school, hybrid or distant or in person, but I just want this to get over with as quick as possible so kids can be back in school with their teachers.
Now, one of the things that's playing on the Iron Range a lot is the Pipeline 3 situation. That is costing a lot of would-be Democratic votes up in that area. Yeah. What do you think about the Pipeline 3? And just briefly explain what that is for our listeners that might not understand.
Well, first of all, I'm adamantly opposed to twin metals and polymet.
Sulfuric metal.
Yeah, it's horrible what's going to happen to the watershed if there's an accident, and the money, the millions of dollars it's going to cost. There's just not money to fix it, and the corporations and the state have said there is no money to fix it if there is a spill. But Line 3 is a pipeline by Enbridge that's going to take tar oil, whatever it's called, from Edmonton all the way down to Superior, Wisconsin.
Put it on a ship.
And put it on a ship after it's refined in Superior. Well, the current one is 50 or 60 years old, and it's running at less than 50% capacity. And so they say they need a new pipeline so they can run it more efficiently. And at 50% capacity, the harm of spillage is pretty high. And that's why it's running at 50%. So that's one of those issues, sometimes I'm kind of like, maybe we should have Enbridge develop. And sometimes I think we shouldn't, but certainly that I'm just so worried that it's going to result in a spillage. Clearly, the answer is get us into better, efficient cars, electric and zero emission vehicles and low emission vehicles. So we reduce our carbon footprint. And someday those pipelines will be little historical pull-offs on the highway, and there'll be a remnant of a pipeline, and there'll be a little historical sign saying in the 2020s they used fossil fuels from Edmonton, Alberta to Superior, Wisconsin. Yeah.
So now, right now, the Republicans hold a 3-seat majority. As you indicate, it's quite likely that will turn around.
Yes.
But it's still going to be very close.
Yeah.
So you're going to have to work on both sides of the aisle. What do you think about that? Is that something that causes you any consternation going forward, given the track record of where the Republicans have been?
No, if we would just, our constituents, and no matter where you live in Minnesota, that you go door knocking and you make phone calls, the first thing they say, can't you people just get along? Yeah. Can't you guys just talk? And
are there any adults in the room?
Right. Everything. And I think that it's all about relationships, Tim. I just think if we just sat down and talked and that old Tip O'Neill and Ronald Reagan relationship, or Ginsburg and Scalia have been getting a lot of press lately, that those two, they didn't see eye to eye politically, but at least they talked and they tried to educate each other, and there was no yelling. And I made a phone call this week, and this guy, the guy answered, hi, I'm Steve Cwodzinski, I'm your state senator, and he yells, all politicians are suck, or some horrible word like that. And I thought he'd hang up, and he didn't. And I just said, well, so why do you feel that way? Or what can I do to change your mind? Or I tried to say something funny or witty, and he started talking. He stopped yelling. And finally I found out he actually ran for House back in the 80s. And I don't remember his name, but he lives in my district. But he calmed down, and we had a civilized conversation.
Steve, this is going to be a banner year for Democrats up and down the ticket.
Yes.
Thanks, Senator, for showing up tonight. Let's win this one for Minnesota.
Yeah, and our kids.
Thanks again.
Thanks, Tim.
Democratic Visions is handcrafted by volunteers from Eden Prairie, Hopkins, Minnetonka, Edina, and Bloomington. Watch us on select cable systems and on our YouTube channel. This is Carol Sundstrom.